Hello, I'm Nima Rajan, and welcome to Northwest Newsweek. Greenstone OPP were on the scene of a fatal head-on collision between two passenger vehicles on Friday. Police responded to the crash at around noon on Highway 584, around 10 kilometers north of Geraldton. Police have confirmed that one person is deceased and another person was taken to hospital. The highway between Geraldton and Nakina was closed in both directions for several hours while police carried out their investigation. And it's reached a crisis point in Kenora as the ongoing drug and homeless situation is spilling onto the streets there with no end in sight. The city and several partner agencies held a pair of public safety meetings on Wednesday to get input from residents and let them know what's happening. It all comes following an announcement that the only local homeless shelter will be closed later this month. Adam Riley reports.
Kenora residents had a lot to say to the city and its service agencies on Wednesday.
Some of the comments I've seen from people in Kenora has made me absolutely disgusted and ashamed to be a Canadian.
People don't become meth addicts and then become homeless. They're homeless and they turn to something to make homes better.
I just hope that we can all keep level heads and open hearts to get our community through this.
The comments were made during a pair of public safety meetings held in response to concerns by residents and business owners over what many people believe is a crisis in the streets. The situation was amplified this week after MPP Greg Rickford and the Kenora District Services Board's surprise announcement that the city's only homeless shelter, located in the basement of the Knox United Church, would be closing in 2 weeks, ending what Rickford says was a failed program.
The homeless people that we see here day in and day out, tragically and chronically often for a couple of years, are afraid to go to that facility. It has not lived up to its billing.
The shelter is expected to be closed for 45 days, but Rickford says the closure could run longer. Kenora Mayor Dan Raynard says the city has always had a homeless issue, but it was an out-of-sight, out-of-mind issue. However, over the past winter, 2 buildings in Kenora's downtown, which were used as an unofficial refuge for the homeless, burned to the ground, with one claiming the life of one man. The loss of those buildings has now forced those people into the public eye.
The problem's been there. The fact that the meth crisis, and this isn't unique to Kenora. You read about it in Western Canada. Winnipeg is really struggling. It's starting to spread into towns, and it's something we're all facing.
When it comes to homelessness in Kenora, here are the numbers. A 2018 study found that 223 people self-identified as homeless, which makes up 44% of the district's overall homeless population. But despite the problems, the city and its partners are taking proactive steps. Kenora OPP Detachment Commander Jeff Duggan says they expect to surpass 10,000 calls for service in 2019 in just the city alone. To counter that, he's asking the government for unconventional elements of law enforcement.
Let's have more boots on the ground, doing social work, doing addictions treatment. Let's get out of the office, let's get downtown, let's get on the streets.
Indigenous leaders in the Kenora area are also weighing in on the crisis. In a release Wednesday, Treaty 3 Grand Chief Francis Kavanagh called for an emergency meeting of their leadership and municipal leaders as he believes they are facing a social emergency of epidemic proportions. Adam Riley, TBT News.
As mentioned, the public safety meetings in Kenora come mere days after the announcement that the city's only homeless shelter would be closing in just 2 weeks, evicting almost 36 members of the city's most vulnerable population onto the streets. Tyler Kelleher has the details on what led to the decision to close the shelter and what service organizations in Kenora are doing to help prevent this cascade of issues that are expected to come.
For the past 6 months, members of Kenora's homeless population have had access to a 48-bed unit located in the basement of the Knox United Church. However, on Monday, MPP Greg Rickford and the Kenora District Services Board announced in less than 2 weeks the shelter will be closed for a minimum of 45 days. Shelter operator Patty Fairfield says she wasn't given any forewarning of the announcement and found out after it was made.
I was just told this was going to happen, so right away, my head starts reeling and thinking, oh my God, the people, we've made this commitment to the people, what's going to happen to them?
Part of the reasoning for the closure is a perceived criminal element of both drugs and human trafficking.
We suspect things that are going on in the community. I think that there's individuals that know places that they can and attract those people. So, with the shelter, obviously we don't condone those types of behaviors, but we know we have individuals that we bring in obviously to house and keep them safe.
Services Board CAO Henry Wall says his organization has been working around the clock since Monday with other agencies to make sure supports are in place for those who have been accessing the shelter on a regular basis.
Just to make sure that we're not just throwing people off to the streets. And so we're putting those temporary plans in place, but at the same time looking at when we reopen to ensure that all the tools and resources are in place to make this work.
The city itself has been taking its own action to curb the city's homeless population from congregating in public spaces by filling in several green spaces with rocks, which has raised the ire of some and made others question why they're being forced out.
Because those addicts that were up there now are in the downtown dropping their needles more. I got the needle from a guy who used to hang up in that green space, and I want to know why you allowed that to happen.
Yes, it was an area where people went, but it was not an area that left the people in that neighborhood feel safe.
In a release, Kiiwetinoong MPP Saul Mamakwa calls the closure of the shelter dehumanizing and is calling on Rickford to make sure the proper supports are in place.
This is a reset. Saul should and could mind his business and tend to things that our government is taking care of up in Kiiwetinoong. The response has been very positive to some of the things that we've done there, especially in Sioux Lookout.
When pressed that many of Mamakwa's constituents end up in Kenora, as it is a health and justice hub for both the Kenora, Rainy River, and Kiiwetinoong ridings, Rickford says Mamakwa doesn't understand the situation in Kenora. However, Rickford did hint at a $4.5 million 20 to 30 unit mental health and addictions facility, but he offered no timeline for the creation of the facility. Tyler Kelleher, TBT News.
Nothing has been confirmed just yet, but a tornado warning issued for the Atikokan, Shabandowan, and Quetico Park areas last Friday may have actually yielded a real twister. This video shot at Quetico Center shows the amount of devastation in the immediate aftermath of the storm. Over a dozen trees were uprooted or snapped in two, with one of them ending up on top of a building. Now, fortunately, no one was injured in the storm. The owner of Quetico Center says he is trying to get equipment to the area to remove the debris. Environment Canada says it's waiting on results from a team that was dispatched with drones to assess the area and determine whether or not a tornado did touch down. The Weather Office says there were also reports of storm damage in the Shabandowan Lake area. The section of Highway 17 between Terrace Bay and Marathon has now reopened after a fatal collision this week. A transport truck and an SUV collided head-on at around 9:45 Tuesday evening. OPP say the driver of the SUV, a 36-year-old Toronto man, was killed. The 24-year-old female driver of the transport from Kapuskasing was sent to Thunder Bay Regional Hospital with serious injuries. A male passenger in the rig was also hurt. The highway was closed for more than 12 hours. Legal professionals and residents in communities across the province, including Thunder Bay and Kenora, gathered to protest cuts to Ontario's legal aid system by the Ford government on Tuesday. Ian Kaufman reports.
Local events included a march along Memorial Avenue and a rally at the Finlandia Club, as well as several pop-up legal clinics around the city. Activists and legal aid organizations were working to raise awareness about the impact of significant cuts to legal aid programs. Beth Ponka, who works with the Kinawea Legal Clinic, says those cuts will result in reduced services for the most vulnerable.
Legal Aid Ontario's budget has been cut by about 30%, and they found out about that after the fiscal year started in April, and the cuts were effective on April the 1st. So there have been substantial cuts to legal aid services and to legal clinics across the province.
The march was organized by the Thunder Bay and District Injured Workers Support Group. President Janet Peterson says injured workers are just one example of a vulnerable group that will be hurt by the cuts.
Most injured workers, they're cut off. They're fighting because they do not have any income. They have not received entitlement, so therefore they have no benefits. Therefore, they cannot. The opportunity to get a lawyer is impossible. It's all about actually having justice. It is having a voice so that everybody is going to be given justice at the end of the day.
Meanwhile, pop-up events at City Hall, the Finlandia Club, Minnesota Park, and the Kinawea Legal Clinic helped get the message out to the public. Events were also organized in Geraldton and Marathon. Ian Kaufman, TVT News.
It's a $9,000 case of buyer beware for a Fort Frances man. A justice of the peace fined Byong-ok Kim that amount after an investigation by the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry uncovered that he had purchased 6 black bear gallbladders. Some cultures believe that black bear gallbladders have medicinal powers. However, the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Act makes it illegal for a person to possess bear parts that have been removed from a carcass. Kenora's Harbour Fest is on this weekend, but before the party got started, it was on the receiving end of some serious provincial dollars. The event is one of the most recognized musical festivals in northwestern Ontario. Now it's in its 28th year, and Harbour Fest is a major economic driver during the summer tourism season, which is why it has been recognized with a grant from Celebrate Ontario in the amount of $56,000. Kenora Rainy River MPP Greg Rickford says thousands of people flock to the area during summer from all around the country and beyond, and investing in events like Harbour Fest is a good idea.
It's a small investment in the scale of things with a big dividend for the city of Kenora. And it's just like Sioux Narrows and Nestor Falls. Tomorrow I'm going to announce $10,000 from Celebrate Ontario for their festival down there. Now, that market is a little bit different here. More than 50% of the folks who live in and around Sioux Narrows, Nestor Falls, are seasonal residents. So we continue to make those investments because we know people are coming from near and far to celebrate what we have here on Lake of the Woods.
The Neskantaga First Nation has taken a major step in their battle to end a quarter-century-long boil water advisory. TVT News went to the remote First Nation in February of this year. At that time, community leaders were upset about construction problems and delays with their new water treatment facility. The Chief and Council announced that crews with Kingdom Construction were ordered to cease operations and leave the reserve. And on Monday, MP Bob Nolt announced that a new company would be taking over the project. The community has been without the use of clean water for 24 years and must use reverse osmosis units or pay inflated prices for bottled water. When we come back, the 2019 federal election is less than 3 months away, and political parties are getting their candidates officially selected. A local emergency room doctor will represent the Liberals in the upcoming federal election. Dr. Marcus Pulowski beat out Shelby Chung and 2 other candidates for the right to carry the Liberal banner in Thunder Bay Rainy River. Alana Pickrell was at Monday night's nomination meeting in Thunder Bay, and she files this report.
It was a hotly contested nomination with 4 candidates on the ballot, and after all the votes were tallied, Marcus Pulowski will be the Liberal candidate in Thunder Bay Rainy River for the upcoming federal election.
It's been about a 10-day campaign, and then suddenly I seem to become a politician, so it all happened pretty quickly. So I don't know if I've really had the time to digest the whole thing.
The Liberals were seeking a new face for October's election after current MP Don Rusnak decided not to seek re-election in order to spend more time with his family. The other 3 candidates were City Councillor Shelby Chung, local businessman David Bruno, and former Green candidate Christy Radbourne. A vote took place in Atikokan and Fort Francis before the final vote in the city. All 4 seeking the nomination gave speeches in every location. Voting members were then asked to rank the candidates, and all ballots were sealed before being counted in Thunder Bay to determine the official candidate for the riding. The vote results are not being made public, but it's been learned that Chung finished a close second in the balloting. Riding Association Chair Murray Monroe says Pulowski, an ER doctor who also has a law degree, will bring a lot to the table.
This is a very, very educated gentleman who is absolutely well-spoken. You know, he has such a high credentials, but he's also extremely well-grounded.
Pulowski says now that he has secured the Liberal nomination, he's ready for a fight against the Conservative Party.
I mean, the big competition in the upcoming election is obviously the Conservatives. I don't want to wake up as being the next domino in this great global movement to the right. This movement towards closing borders, this movement towards hyper-nationalism, this move towards abandoning ideals of free trade.
Pulowski will be running against the Conservative candidate Linda Ridholm and NDP's Yuksum Wong and Andrew Hartnell of the People's Party of Canada. The Green Party hasn't named their candidate yet. The federal election will take place on October 21st. Alana Pickrell, TBT News.
The Northwest was paid a visit by Jagmeet Singh this week. The federal NDP leader made a stop in Thunder Bay to meet with candidates and community members on Tuesday before heading west. He was joined in Kenora by the riding's new candidate announced on Monday and also attended the community safety meeting. Adam Riley reports.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh believes his party will have a strong chance in the Kenora riding going into the next election, thanks to the NDP's high-profile candidate, Grassy Narrows chief Rudy Turtle. Singh says he's honored and excited to have Turtle on his team.
He is a passionate voice, not just for Grassy Narrows, where he's shown that he's fought hard for the people that have struggled with mercury poisoning, but he's just a strong voice for the people of Kenora. He will be someone that will have your back. He will stand up for any issue and any concern that the people have.
Turtle was elected chief of Grassy Narrows in 2018 and recently made headlines when Indigenous Services Minister Seamus O'Regan visited the community in May to sign an agreement to deal with the mercury poisoning that has affected the community for almost half a century. However, despite an invite for the media to witness the signing, it never happened. Turtle is the second Indigenous leader from the Northwest to join the NDP going into the 2019 election after former NAN Deputy Grand Chief Annabette Ashley Penescum was acclaimed earlier this year in Thunder Bay Superior North. Turtle says there are several outstanding issues he wants to tackle.
I feel that there has to be things that need to be addressed with the youth in our communities, also the youth of Kenora, and I feel that housing needs to be addressed, and also medical services and all the social programs that we have within our riding.
Turtle says water quality in First Nation communities is another major priority for him. Singh also made an unplanned appearance at a community safety forum, which was held in Kenora Wednesday. He says the solution has to be compassion-based and not a criminal justice solution.
I believe the solution has to be better housing. The federal government has failed to do its job to make sure there's good housing for people. We've got to make sure we treat the opioid crisis and now here the crystal meth crisis as a healthcare problem, and let's treat the illness, let's treat the addiction, let's give people the supports and help they need.
Adam Riley, TBT News.
With the 2019 Thunder Bay Blues Fest now in the books, residents in the Lake Superior region are now looking towards the next big music festival, the 2019 Live from the Rock Folk Festival. For 17 years, the festival has been a beacon of entertainment in the small hamlet of Red Rock, just west of Nipigon. In addition to the main stage acts, the festival also offers workshops for other musicians to work and collaborate with each other. Festival Chair Laura Folds says Live from the Rock is often referred to as the North Shore's best-kept secret. But despite that term, it makes Red Rock a very popular weekend destination.
Usually we hover around 2,000, 2,500. So one of the lovely things that I always try to plug about our festival is that there's space. It's a beautiful site, Pullalog Park in Red Rock, which is donated graciously by the Township of Red Rock for us every year. There is space for everyone. So, you know, it's safe to say that our population of Red Rock pretty much doubles, if not more, for the weekend of the festival.
Fold says they are still looking for volunteers to help with the festival, which is set to take place next weekend. Coming up after the break, a new school in Thunder Bay created by the Lac des Mille Lacs First Nation intends to offer classes in not one, not two, but 3 different languages. A first-of-its-kind school in Thunder Bay celebrated its opening at a special ceremony on Wednesday. Officials from the Lac des Mille Lacs First Nation outlined their goals for their new elementary school, which they say will be the first trilingual school in Ontario. Corey Nordstrom has more from the ceremony.
The drum opened a ceremony celebrating the start of something unique for both the city and province, the Lac des Mille Lacs Education Centre, a trilingual elementary school which band members say promotes inclusivity.
The spirit of reconciliation is about redefining the relationship between, settler people and Indigenous peoples, and I think that, when we talk about where do we start? I think the best is to start with really young people and to nurture a healthy relationship at a very young age, right?
Attendees got a first look inside the former Hyde Park School, which showed that inclusive atmosphere. The Education Centre will offer English, Ojibwe, and Cree. The elementary school's first year this fall will include just junior and senior kindergarten and grade 1. Education Director Andy Graham says in order for youth to learn the language, they stuck to just a few grades at first.
In order to make sure the languages are preserved, we need to make sure that the time and instructional structure is correct, and also the students have the time with the language. That's why we're starting with JKSK. We don't want to, we could have started, opened the school and been, say, a JK to grade 6 school. But when you're in grade 6, it's very difficult to learn a second language.
Graham adds that the school will add a grade each year they are in operation. They are aiming for at most 75 students and hope that the community will embrace the experiential and innovative take on schooling. The First Nations chief points out that anyone can enroll.
These programs are available for our children and our families, as well as open to all students and families in the greater community of Thunder Bay.
Lac du Mille has a 5-year lease agreement for the building, which is still owned by Lakehead Public Schools. The band has already been using the upstairs of the building to offer alternative high school courses to a handful of students, and there's a daycare in the building as well. Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
Construction continues on a new art gallery in the city of Kenora, which has the potential to become a major hub for visual arts in the Northwest. The $4.5 million project, which will be called the Douglas Family Arts Center, received $1 million each from the federal and provincial governments, with the remaining money raised privately within the region. The gallery will be a part of the Muse, which is the umbrella organization for both the Arts Center and the Lake of the Woods Museum, and is scheduled to open in the fall, according to curator Sophie Lavoie. She says the gallery will be able to accommodate local collection of artwork which focuses on Lake of the Woods and will also have space for other exhibits or events.
The whole annex has been built, part of the old land titles building that's here in Kenora. That's the old land titles building, and so it's attached to that. And so there are 3 gallery spaces. There's the studio gallery in the land titles building, and then 2 brand new gallery spaces, part of the art center. And it's going very well right now. What you're seeing doesn't reflect what's already happened on the inside, so it's pretty much finished on the inside, just some final touches that are going on.
Lavoie adds the Douglas Family Arts Center will be the only facility of its kind between Winnipeg and Thunder Bay, meaning once completed, artists from the entire region will have the opportunity to display their work. And that'll do it for this edition of Northwest Newsweek. I'm Nima Rajan. Take care.